Good egg.
Right?
Yeah. It's working. Is she good? Okay. Good. Okay, great. Good evening, everyone. The time is 6:31, and I'd like to call the District 204 Committee of the Whole meeting to order. Marilyn, can you please call the roll?
Member Aubert. Member Vita Daniels.
Present.
Member Dillon.
Here.
Member Grutch.
Here.
Member Kelly.
Here.
Member Swinehart.
Here.
Member Thomas.
Here.
Thank you, Marilyn. First off, I want to mention tonight that although we have a closed session listed on our agenda this evening, the board will not be entering into closed session tonight following our open session discussion. First up, we have agenda-related public participation. This evening, we will take all public comments before we begin our agenda. We appreciate community participation, but please understand that the board does not engage in dialogue or discussion. If there is a specific question or comment that requires follow-up, the appropriate administrator will respond at a later time. Pursuant to Board Policies 230 and 830, individuals addressing the board are expected to conduct themselves with respect and civility. And in the interest of time, please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Thank you for cooperating with us to make this evening's meeting efficient and productive. And Marilyn, if you can please call our first speaker.
Ann Bennett.
Good evening. The board stated in a March 20th email that it, quote, remains committed to leveraging the district-owned Willow Springs property as an important asset in achieving Goal 5 in our strategic plan, end quote. But that property can also be leveraged to meet your goals number 2 and number 1. So I have the following issues that I want you to consider. Does LTHS offer the same level of access to athletic venues and extracurricular activity programs to its students as other neighboring high school districts do? District 204 adopted a grade setter model with 2 campuses, each with 2 grades, with 1 set of athletic facilities, etc., distributed between each campus. In contrast, Hinsdale and Downers Grove Township high school districts adopted a 2 4-year high school campus model, with each school having a complete set of athletic facilities, etc. Thus, these 2 high school districts appear to offer to its students in total almost twice as many athletic facilities, etc., as LT does, all with about the same approximate total student population. Has LT considered that athletic facilities on the Willow Springs property could be utilized when the South Campus athletic fields are not in appropriate condition for play? Has LT considered how Title IX and additional sports have impacted the utilization and access to its present athletic facilities, etc.? Has LT considered how it can use its Willow Springs property to address the diversity of interests and aptitudes in its student body by offering more diverse educational and extracurricular programming? Has LT considered how it can use its Willow Springs property to develop intramural sports and calming activities to develop positive social, emotional competencies? The Willow Springs property can be used to engage the entire student body by expanding its athletic venues, offering a diversity of intramural and social fun programming, and offering STEM educational programs such as agriculture, animal science, food science, horticulture, biotechnology and agriculture, forestry, landscape design, etc. Utilizing the Willow Springs property is an opportunity to set District 204 above other area high schools by offering its student body a diversity of curricula and after-school activities. And then I have one more issue I want to mention about the selling of the property. I want to make sure that you're looking at timing risks associated with the sale of the property, which is very valuable, in relation to when your collective bargaining agreements expire. Timing considerations should include market conditions, but your union contract is 80% of your budget, and therefore I feel that it would be best for you to sell this property after your union contracts have been executed to eliminate the risk that the sale proceeds become part of contract negotiations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Mr. Montgomery, I think he's not here. And the next one is a request to be read by Jim DeStasio. As you talk about your budget forecast and the need for capital improvements, I want to circle back to your attempts to sell the Willow Springs property at top dollar without thinking of the consequences it would have on the Pleasantdale community. The recently released email communication showing this board reached back out to industrial developers to resubmit bids for the Willow Springs property on January 26 after nearly 90 minutes of mostly negative public comments at your January 23rd board meeting is another example of the board's willful and continued disregard for the residents of Willow Springs, the children of Pleasantdale Elementary, and all District 204 constituents who value transparent and honest governance. In my remarks in person at the March 6th board meeting, I asked for clarification if this board reached back out to industrial builders following the January 23rd meeting. Your policies state that you will answer queries within 48 hours. Why was this question never answered in your stated time frame? Why did we find out you further betrayed our community in a patch report weeks later? Were you once again more concerned with optics and full transparency? Why must our community find out about your damaging and immoral actions through FOIA requests and media reports? You may have paused the land sale to salvage an election, but our community will never forget what you tried to do. All 7 members on the board, plus Superintendent Waterman and Brian Stashak, have irrevocably broken our trust. You haven't offered even a half-hearted apology for the 2 months of pain that you put the Pleasantdale community through. You were elected to be stewards of our school and advocates for our children, but the minute you saw all the zeros in the first industrial bid, you acted in a way that would make even the most hardened vulture capitalist wince. The botched land sale is forever your legacy. Danielle Scarpelli.
Hi. Well, this is my second time talking. I'm a lot more comfortable this time after reading all the things on the internet about all the FOIAs that have been, people have FOIA'd and been sent. This can't continue anymore. We need transparency and trust. Don't forget the bids at the bidding were unsealed. People saw that they were unsealed. Why didn't you record that bidding? You record everything else. Why isn't that recorded? You waited over 15 minutes for Bridge Industries to show up because you knew they were coming. Let's not tell any more lies. Let's be honest here. Plus, Jill, you live 3 doors down from the broker, don't you? That was brokering the $55 million deal. You would get, what, $2.5 million? And you're not rerunning for your seat? Looks kind of shady. People need to know the truth. You all have failed us. You're not trustworthy one bit. There's no transparency on this board at all. You're a school board. Did you forget you work for the taxpayers? That's all I'm going to say.
That concludes the public participation.
Thank you. Next up, we will be taking action this evening. While we don't normally take action at the committee of the whole meeting, we will be doing so this evening for all items that are related to the 2023-2024 staffing and sectioning process, which is something we do every year. So first up, under Human Resources, we have capstone courses and courses with enrollments under 18. Ed Piotrowski.
Thank you very much, President Dillon. This is the second time that we are seeing the capstone course and courses with enrollments under 18 presentation. We did review this at the regular meeting in March prior to leaving for spring break. There have been no changes to this document and this recommendation from that time until now. At this time, I'm happy to answer any questions if the board has any.
So we won't expect any other changes after this, right, Ed? This is it?
Nope, there would not be any changes after this point.
Great. Anybody have any questions? All right, sounds good. Is there a motion then to approve the capstone courses and enrollments under 18 for the 2023-2024 school year as presented?
So moved.
Second. Can you call the roll, please?
Yes.
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 Yes. Next up is the second reading of administrative and certified staff non-tenured employment recommendations for 2023-2024. Back to you, Ed Piotrowski.
Thank you, President Dillon. As with the last item, this is the second time that we are reviewing this, and there have been no changes to this document as well. As a reminder, this is a document that all school districts must or this is a process that all school districts must participate in, generally in March or April of each school year in order to meet school code timeline requirements should there be any reductions in force for non-tenured staff members. This is where we make the decisions about people moving forward a year in the tenure process, or if there have to be any honorable dismissals due to reductions in force, this is the time when the board were to take action. As we stated, or as I stated at the previous meeting, the only reductions in force are honorable dismissals due to part-time positions not being available within certain departments. And should positions exist, we would certainly entertain staff returning to the district as well. But as I stated, there are no changes from the first reading to the second reading. I'm happy to answer any questions the board might have.
Ed, I missed the first reading on this one, or the first discussion about it. The non-tenured honorable dismissed, or the part-time people. So that's dependent on right now, depending on next year, what people, the classes and everything chosen?
Correct.
So they know when they're, they know that they potentially could be asked back? Okay. And is it usually pretty often that they are, or what, how does that work?
It all depends year to year because it's truly based on the number of sections that we would have within a certain area. It also could be based on specific licensure requirements that are there. So it's hard to say, you know, and give a blanket statement about that, but we would truly look at it from year to year to determine, do we have sections within applied technology, let's say, or science? And then if so, you know, are there specific licensure requirements that would allow that person to take it, or would we need something else?
Okay. And then because some of these, the part-times are like 0.3. So they were really part-time, or was some of their time spent in a different area?
So this report is only for certified staff. So oftentimes a person who might be a 0.3 certified staff member, that would essentially mean they are teaching 3 sections out of a possible 10 over the course of a school year. Each semester, it's 5 sections to be a full-time teacher. So a 0.3 teacher might teach 2 sections one semester, 1 section the next. Oftentimes they would augment that employment by working as a paraeducator during the day. And so this is the board action for the certified side of things,
Okay.
because they are separate, correct.
And Ed, how soon, I mean, how far in advance will you know if you're going to bring some of these people back? Like, when do they usually find out? I mean, is it like in the summer?
It could be. I mean, it is, right now, we know based on our staffing that there isn't sufficient sections to warrant people coming back. But should there be any sort of staffing changes that happen between now and the start of the school year, that could warrant some of those recalls. If we know that there is sufficient sections to bring someone back, we are generally not trying to go through the reduction and the recall process. But we do know things could happen throughout the year. But we have had some part-time staff members that are already on the recall list because within their or in the rehire list because of their particular area. We know that we have sections that are sufficient to either keep them at that part-time basis or even move them up to full-time.
Are there any overall themes that you would share? I mean, to me, when I look at this list, I'm really impressed by how many teachers advance from, second year to third year. Each year, obviously, it's the similar list, but does this imply that you have a very high retention rate and generally we're very happy to continue to maintain employment with all the folks here? I think it's a great message.
Absolutely, and thank you. We do have a very strong teacher retention rate. We're about 97% with teacher retention. We are always going to have vacancies that exist every year. Those are going to come by way of retirements. Those are going to come by way of leaves of absence. Those also might come by way of part-time needs that we may have on a year in and year out basis. It's very rare that we will have a single school year without any part-time staff within departments. That would just mean that throughout the sectioning process, the numbers just lined up perfectly, right? And very rarely does that happen. But what we don't see a lot of is a lot of turnover for other reasons. Mm-hmm. So we have a very high teacher retention rate, and that's something we're incredibly proud of.
Great, thank you.
Awesome. Great. Can we have a motion then to approve the administrative and certified staff non-tenured employment recommendations for the 2023-2024 school year as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Marilyn, can you call the roll, please?
Yes.
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 Yes. Our next item, sticking with the same theme, Ed, is the second reading of the resolution authorizing the honorable dismissal or reduction of teachers for 2023-2024.
Thank you, President Dillon. This item truly goes hand in hand with the previous item. As I mentioned, there are school code timelines should there be any sort of reduction in force. This resolution simply puts into board wording and lettering, board letters to the staff members if there is going to be a reduction and what their recall rights are. So as part of the board action to approve the staffing recommendations, there is also a subsequent action to approve the resolution that follows.
Alrighty. Great, then is there a motion to approve the resolution authorizing the honorable dismissal or reduction of teachers for the 2023-2024 school year as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Marilyn, if you can call the roll, please.
Yes.
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 Yes. And next up is the second reading of the 2023-2024 instructional aid paraprofessional staff employment recommendations.
Thank you, President Dillon. While we were just speaking about certified, non-tenured staff members, non-certified staff members don't have the same thing as tenure within school code, but there are things, as it relates to seniority. And as part of our paraprofessional or paraeducator contract, we go through this process every year in March, where we formally release all of our first-year paraeducators, let them know that, subject to position availability, that they would be recalled over the summer. And while this is happening, the team members within our special education leadership team and our special educators themselves are working through IEP meetings to determine what our staffing needs are for the upcoming school year. The majority of our paraeducators are housed within our special education department, and so when we have an idea of what our needs are for the next year, because every year our special education needs will change, for staffing. When we know those, we will then recall the paraeducators that were released in the order in which they were hired. Similar to Member Swinehart's question before, we will have retirements that will happen in this group. We also have paraeducators who have full teaching credentials that end up getting jobs as teachers. So we do know that there is movement within this group, so it is very rare that we're not recalling the paraeducators back. It could happen based on staffing needs, but given the other movement that we have, we anticipate being able to recall the majority of these staff members, if not all of them.
Questions? And Ed, this is something that probably all school districts have to do the same as just for me.
Absolutely, yes. There's school code timelines for the reduction of non-certified staff members as well, and so generally you see in the March or April board meetings, school districts going through this process.
Great, thank you. All right, then is there a motion to approve the instructional aid paraprofessional staff employment recommendations for the 2023-2024 school year as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Can you call the roll, please, Marilyn?
Member Kelly?
Yes.
Member Swinehart?
Yes.
Member Thomas?
Yes.
Member Vita Daniels?
Yes.
Member Brutch?
Yes.
Member Dillon?
Yes. Thank you. Next up is the second reading of the administrative staff contract renewals for 2023-2024. Mr. Piotrowski.
Thank you, President Dillon. This item involves the administrative staff contract renewals for administrative staff members who have already earned tenure with the district. So in one of the previous action items, the resolution or the administrative and certified staff non-tenured employment recommendations, that included administrative staff members who are in the tenure pipeline right now. We do have quite a few administrative staff members who have already earned tenure in the district, and this is just a board action to essentially issue a contract to them for the upcoming school year in the position that they are. Tenure rights already exist for them by way of employment. This is just to solidify them within their roles. And I'm happy to answer any questions that the board might have. And again, in full disclosure, my name is on there as well, so.
All right, well, that sounds good then. Can we have a motion to approve the administrative staff contract renewals for the 2023-2024 school year as presented?
So moved.
Second. Marilyn, can you call the roll, please?
Member Swinehart?
Yes.
Member Thomas?
Yes.
Member Vita Daniels?
Yes.
Member Brutch?
Yes.
Member Kelly?
Yes.
Member Dillon?
Yes. And finally, under an action item we have is the certified staff leaves of absence. Back to you, Ed.
Thank you very much, President Dillon. The last part of this goes back to the previous question about part-time employment. In certain years, in different departments, we may have part-time opportunities. And it is not uncommon for us to have tenured staff members who are interested in a part-time opportunity. And what that would essentially do is reduce them from a full-time 1.0 FTE to a part-time, 0.5, 0.6, whatever that might be, FTE, which stands for full-time employment. If those opportunities exist and someone is interested in them, the way that they request them is by essentially requesting a leave of absence from part of their assignment. At this time, we have a part-time opportunity within math, and so we have a teacher within our math department who is tenured, who is interested in a part-time position. That is the request for this one. So it is different from a leave of absence that you might see for, something that's covered under the Family Medical Leave Act or something along those lines. This is essentially a request for a leave of absence from part of their assignment in order to take a part-time assignment. But there have been no changes to this document and this item since the last time we saw it, prior to spring break. And I'm happy to answer any questions the board may have.
And on that, how does that work as far as, can they go like part-time next year and then switch back to full-time and back and forth? Is that?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. Every year is truly a standalone year because part-time availability is based on the outcome of sectioning. So anyone who is interested in a part-time position, I always have the conversation with them that say, this year it looks like we have a 0.7 part-time assignment. Next year, that might not be the case. It might be full-time, it might be less, and we truly take it as a year-to-year basis, right? So you may see the same name requesting a part-time assignment year in and year out. Doing it 10 years in a row doesn't guarantee that there's going to be an 11th year, right? It all depends. And it also doesn't guarantee that that person may want to continue in a part-time assignment. We've had people who have been part-time and then wish to go back to full-time, and that's certainly fine as well, too.
So that's why it's a leave of absence, so that the full-time position is always available for
Correct.
them. Get it? I'm catching on.
We never seem to have too many of those every year. I feel like that's like.
Yeah, it's very rare. Yeah.
All right, great. Is there then a motion to approve the certified staff leaves of absences for the 2023-2024 school year as presented?
So moved.
Second. Marilyn, can you call the roll, please?
Yes.
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 Yes. Okay, we're not leaving you yet, Ed. We still have an HR informational item. We have stipend committee recommendations.
Thank you very much, President Dillon. We do have two recommendations from the Stipend Committee that we are bringing forward at this time for information, but then ultimately with a request for approval at the April 17th Board of Education meeting. Those two clubs are Battle of the Books and Yarn and Thread. Both of these clubs are currently in pilot status, have been in pilot status for at least one school year, actually a little bit longer than a school year based on when their pilot status began, and both have active student participation. And we are recommending, after meeting with the Stipend Committee in March, we are recommending that both of these clubs move forward to full status. Just a quick overview of them. Battle of the Books is essentially a competitive book club where students would read books, and then they would enter into a competition that's very similar to like a Scholastic Bowl or a Science Olympiad type book competition, knowledge of books and theme competition against other school districts. It's something that's very popular in middle schools in the area as well, so we do have students who were very excited to see it at our co-curricular night because they had participated in it at their associated elementary and middle school. So we are excited to be able to offer that with one accompanying stipend for a club sponsor. And then Yarn and Thread Club is a club where students are able to come together and either practice if they already know about needlework, knitting, crochet, things along those lines, or to learn about that if they haven't. And so this is something that began in the 21-22 school year as well as a pilot status, and we have a dedicated group of students who are participating in that, and a dedicated staff member who's really devoted a lot of her time and effort and energy to get that club off the ground and help it keep running. So we are excited to move both of those clubs to full club status. And I'm happy to answer any questions the board may have about those.
I do have one question, because for the Battle of the Books, it's 17 students. Is that like a good number for a club? Because the Yarn Club had like, what is it, 47 students or something?
We don't have any hard and fast number of this is the number of students that have to be in a particular club, because it's all based on the specifics of the club. For that type of club where it is competition-based, having a smaller number than something that might be interest-based alone without the competition element would be totally fine with that. If we saw it grow and felt that we needed to have another club sponsored to maybe split off if they were doing different books or different practice things, we would certainly do that. But we don't feel like that 17 is a number that's small where we would have to be concerned about
It
that
works
at all.
for it.
Absolutely.
Just when you compare the two, it's like a
Correct.
third versus.
Correct. And we have some clubs, just because of the nature of the club, you can have a lot of students, and some clubs, because of the nature and maybe safety or supervision in there, that you wouldn't be able to have as many
I
students.
think the robotics is one we had talked
Yeah,
about. Okay.
absolutely.
Just curious about the number, if that
Yep.
was.
With all these clubs, whether it's robotics or books or the yarn or whatever, all those supplies and everything, LT supplies, all that, all the robotics or machinery or everything. Okay.
Yeah, we'll supply a lot of it, maybe not all of it. They do, the clubs will do fundraising if they want to do different, special events or different things. But the clubs will have a budget through student activities that they can use to help purchase a lot of those supplies.
I just love seeing this. I think, one of the goals that's been a longstanding goal and also part of the strategic plan is to make sure there's something for everyone here at LT. And I really think clubs that are, I'd say kind of unique, Yarn and Thread and Battle of the Books, really differentiate LT across peers. So, and it's often student-led, right? These ideas
Absolutely.
come from students typically, and then there's some sort of teacher or professional support within the school.
Absolutely.
It's just great to see. So I support what's on the page.
It is what LT has always been known for and continues to be known for, so.
I appreciate that. There's always there seems to always be a committed sponsor, and it seems like the clubs don't lapse for lack of having somebody who will step up to the plate and be there
Absolutely.
to support the students, which is awesome. I only had one other question, too, I was going to ask Ed, related to that. I don't know if we ever get the time, because I know we offer so many clubs, and we continue to do that, and we don't necessarily say a club has to go away because there's such a low level of interest in that, which I really appreciate. But I wondered if there's a way that we ever look at the activity participation, just kind of on the whole. If you get a sense of if there's trends where maybe there's times when students feel like they're really active and they're totally into doing things, extracurriculars, and then there's other times that we might have a dip in that kind of interest level. So I don't know if we ever do a forecast or take a look at that kind of data.
Like overall in student activities?
Yeah.
That's actually a metric on Goal 2.
Okay.
Which Leslie and Jen work pretty closely on with our student activities, but that's something we track.
Okay. And how far back could we go with that? Now we're just building it, right? So
No,
we've got that.
We've always been about 75% of our students
Okay.
that participate. I don't know what the latest, do you guys know what the latest number is?
73 at the end of first semester, and that's before any spring sports or have been added in, so.
Awesome.
And then we also look at them individually as well, because if we do see a club that has, very low enrollment for a prolonged period of time, then we might look to either repurpose that club or reutilize that club's stipend in a different way if we
I
have
think
to.
even maybe some have been merged in the past. too.
Absolutely.
And then just one other comment that I have, it's also important to look at the non-participants, right? And to Julie's point of, having something for everyone here at LT, it's important that we talk to our non-participants to gauge why aren't they involved? Because we all know that involvement matters, engagement matters, and it opens the door to success academically and just a more fulfilling LT experience. So targeting conversations with those individuals to see if it's a matter of, do we not have something that interests you, or are you involved in outside activities that aren't school-related? related. And so we've been having some of those conversations this year as well.
What are some of the reasons?
You know, some students are involved in non-school related activities. Some cite that they take care of children at home, they work. So there's a myriad of different things. But something that's been important to our team is not to make assumptions about non-participation, but to really find out from students and then think about how we might be able to, where there's an opening and an opportunity for kids that want to be involved, how can we take that next step and get them connected? Sometimes it can be a little intimidating. It's, you know, well into the school year for a student to just find a club online, right? We have over 100, and then just walk into a meeting, but thinking about ways that we can take the next step and assist students to help get them there in a space where they feel connected and comfortable is a really important thing.
On that note, too, I'll say that the kids do kind of, they have that opportunity to kind of come and go a little bit. And that gives them that flexibility, which is
Yeah, almost all of our, not our competitive activities, there certainly
Right.
are some that are time-bound, but almost, so many of our activities are open enrollment throughout the course of the year. And so making sure that we can constantly market and share information about those activities is really important, so students know that they always have a chance to jump in and get connected to something. Yeah, Joe.
Who is reaching out to the kids?
So Peter Geddes, our activities director, has taken the lead this year on some of those empathy interviews and conversations with non-participants. We tried focus group conversations, but those weren't super successful in terms of getting students to attend a large group meeting. So we determined that individual conversations really would be a good route to take in this year to determine kind of where their participation is and isn't, and how we might be able to support students in getting them connected.
So not through, like, I know when we had, like, with the equal opportunity schools where they had somebody that they identify with, so it's not that person that they would identify with, you have some.
Not necessarily, but that's a really
trusted
good,
adult.
that's a really good idea to look at some of that trusted adult data and see if those would be individuals that could reach out to kids. Yeah,
And then
it's a good
maybe know
idea.
them better to say, here's a club, I know, I'd love to, maybe, Joe can be your friend to take you there or something like that.
Absolutely, it's a great idea.
So, okay.
Yeah. Our district equity leadership team is looking at the EOS data next Monday at the meeting, so it's a great idea.
And we'll see this again for approval at the April 17th meeting?
Correct.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, we have the second reading of the summer workshop proposals. Scott Eckerding.
Thank you, President Dillon. We are taking a look for a second time at these workshop proposals. I've been meeting with chairs and actually some of the teams to try and finalize when exactly these are going to happen. We are going to make sure, though, that all of them take place in June for a couple of reasons. We want to make sure we're able to access all of the grant monies that are available to us. And also, teachers tend to prefer earlier workshops rather than later ones. Then they go into the summer feeling ready to go for the fall, rather than coming back in August with a lengthy list of things to do. So we are finalizing some of that. So hopefully by the April board meeting, we'll have more details. And definitely by the time everything is finalized, then we'll start getting contracts out. But what we are looking at here are 20 workshops. I do mention that we did drop one workshop in that we only have one teacher teaching the English creation and reflection course. We figure we'll wait then till we get into the curriculum review of senior year courses, and that would give us the opportunity to review that course. And it probably does need some revamping if we only need one teacher to teach it. So that's we'll certainly look at that in the future. That being said, a lot of excitement about the workshops, not only with our co-teaching training and expansion, our cultivating curriculum workshop with Dr. Rowe to expand on Goldie Muhammad's 5 pursuits, our curriculum view teams, and EL bilingual. We'll talk more about that when we look at textbooks as well today. Our instructional coaches are going to be doing some training and then getting ready for the next year, as well as our new courses, and our counselors and one other English class. So we've got lots on tap, and trying to fit all the pieces together is our challenge right now to get everybody going. But we will start right away. Co-teaching will definitely be the first week we're out of school, and that's going to bring in probably the biggest group of folks. So.
Which one? I'm sorry.
Co-teaching.
Awesome.
Scott, where did I find that? The cultivating curriculum, or co-teaching, not co-teaching, because that's a really specific one, but one that maybe teachers, more than we have allotted for, if they want to do that, can they jump in, or is this kind of the maximum?
I have a little wiggle room. The way that I determine the amount is on the high end of the faculty scale. So $40.50 is the high amount, and that's based on experience. So we have new teachers, younger teachers, teachers that don't have master's degrees. They won't make that much. So we have that opportunity. We also have some people who in March think, yeah, I can definitely do a summer workshop, and then by the second week of June, they're like, nope, it's not going to happen. So I will have some wiggle room. My goal is never to exceed what is requested, and we've never really had such a demand that we've had to go in that direction. But that being said, there is some flexibility. So, for example, once teachers finalize their schedules, there may be a new teacher that's teaching biology, for example. So we'll want to add that person in. So we do have some flexibility to do that. We just try to keep the number as close to what we're, and not going over what is approved.
I would look at it and go, if there's scenario, or if there's something big that's going on that more teachers want in for, that's where I would ask for more versus walk away from. And it sounds like you've got the wiggle room to cover it.
Yeah, usually we build more than one to come. Again, it's a great idea until you're like, wait a minute, 4 days in a row. And sometimes it comes down to childcare, or it comes down to whatever would happen in the summer. Sometimes people end up teaching summer school at the last minute, or lots of different scenarios.
It's just sunny out.
And obviously, we only spend the money if the teachers participate.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, if
So
someone
it's
only comes
it's
2
almost
days
a
out of the
budget.
5, they just get paid for the 2 days. They do get a contract for the full amount, but it's on the assumption they complete it, and then they turn in timesheets. So. And you'll get a report in the fall of all the work that was done.
Sorry, Scott, you said early on when you were starting to talk about this, is it from a scheduling standpoint, you kind of front-loaded most of the workshops, so they'll be like in June, is that what you're saying?
Yes, we're doing them all in June.
That makes sense. Yeah, that's great.
If you recall, last year, we had a few that sort of leaked into August, and then people didn't turn in timesheets, and then we ended up not being able to access all the grant money. So this year, we're being kind of sticklers about it.
Operational mode. Great. All right, so we'll see this for final consideration on April 17th.
You will.
Okay. Let's see, we're sticking with you, Scott. We have the first reading of additional textbook change requests. More?
Yes, thank you very much. As is our practice, we usually look at most or all of our curriculum, or all of our textbook changes in January, February. But as I mentioned, we are going through curriculum reviews, and language arts in particular is making a number of requests for changes. Really, the bulk of the handouts are the requests for student choice books. And student choice ultimately would be replacing a novel or a nonfiction book that every student reads, and give the students 10, 12 different books to choose from. Once they decide what they want, the books are ordered, and then they're brought in. So they're given a flat fee, and then from that we bring in all of those books. So that's one of the big components. The other one has to do with our EL program, and we have had an EL program using the same books for quite a while, long enough that it was time to review and look at something and see really what was out there. And really what has changed in the land of English learners is multimodal and multimedia texts. So not only are there books, traditional books, but there's also online assessments that lead to online readings, that also make suggestions for readings, also make suggestions for lesson planning. So really, in looking at a change here for our EL program, that's their goal, is to look at the ILIT program. It's pretty exciting because it can be tailored to any level of an EL student, and it also doesn't run out. In other words, it doesn't just work for 1 year. If a student is in EL longer, they're able to grow along the way. It's adaptable, and is something that will work both with bilingual and all of our students who are not speaking Spanish. So in that sense, it seems like a really good option. We are looking into using our state funds to pay for everything. I mean, that's the one piece. You have to wait till you know exactly what you're getting, but we know we'll roughly get the same amount. We do get, as a part of our general state aid, an amount that's earmarked for ELs, and that's what we would be looking to do to pay for this. Worst case scenario, and that's what I've outlined here in the packet, is if students had to pay, there is a fee that we could charge only to those who aren't on free and reduced lunch. So, but our goal in working with our general state aid monies is to have this fully paid for using grant funds. So, other things, as we've looked at some other courses, world language programs, world language textbooks are frustrating. I'll just lay that right out there. They're expensive, and the way that textbook companies are trying to get around this is they like to sell you unbound books with 3 holes in them, which is what we were doing with Italian. The problem is we haven't been able to get the books, and then you have the binder issue. So we are looking to make a change in Italian. Our bookstore is telling us that it's nearly impossible, and we either need to write the publisher of their current system for copyright ability to make photocopies, because they're just not sending the book. So we're going to make a change in Italian. You'll also see that there's other interests for our languages as well. It's, again, multimedia is much more friendly to languages, but with our Indiana University partnership, we talked about that earlier, they wanted to make a change as well. So there's always little changes, but for this one only, is Italian. It's just kind of frustrating that Italian, French, Spanish, and German all are looking for new text next year. Some aren't even within our 5-year window, but they're just frustrating. So that's unfortunate that's really becomes a larger cost of the district as well. So we're adding in the Italian along with French, German, and Spanish. So a little disappointed by that, but there's not a whole lot we can do with that. Our new course, the medical terminology class, has a text exploring medical language. Really fascinating text. It's it's like a combination workbook, textbook, and it actually looks engaging. If you can, thinking of we're going to learn all the medical terms in a semester, it actually looks pretty engaging. So these books will all be on display in the boardroom for a month, and you're more than welcome to take a look at that one. I found that one fascinating. And then as we've been doing our AP US Government, there's been some subtle shifts in that course, and they want to make a change to that particular book as well. So again, it looks like a whole lot more than it is. The bulk of it has to do those changes with English 1, our freshman English. In addition to the choice books, they want to make a change in the Odyssey, the version of the Odyssey, to a different translation. They feel that the Wilson translation is more accessible, and the book's actually shorter than the Fagles, which is what they've been doing. And after a lengthy discussion, really, as we've been doing the curriculum review, trying to be more representative, there was a real desire to make a shift from Romeo and Juliet to Othello. That Othello was it keeps the Shakespeare front and center, but it also gives you perhaps a more modern take on some age-old issues. So they're interested in making that change. And then also English 1 Accelerated is wanting to bring in the Poetex as a text as well. So lots of choices and lots of exposure to different experiences and cultures, which the teachers are really excited about. And it's always fun to be with teachers who are really excited about what their changes are. They're not like, oh, we have to do this. They're like, can't wait to try this and do this and try this. So it's been a really invigorating process. So I think that just about covers it. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. Everything that's in gray in your cost summaries is what's already been approved. So the pieces that I spoke of tonight are those other components. And then ultimately you have all of the forms. So Apologize for that. What will happen, though, I will leave the forms with the books for the month, so you won't see the actual textbook forms in your board packet. They're here for your review. They'll be with the books in the boardroom, but there's really no need. It's really a bookkeeping component so that the bookstore orders the right things, so we wanted you to see them, but we don't have to fill the packet with them going forward.
And then this would come back in May for
This will
second
come back in May, because once we formally propose these at the board meeting, then they will be on display for a month per our policy for review, and that includes all of the selected books. So all of the student choice books will be on display as well.
First reading tonight and April 17th, second reading in May.
Yep.
And Scott, the full total to the district is 137,000 plus the 9,000?
It's 18,000 more than last month, and I'm trying to think if I had that in there too. I can definitely make sure to include that in the cover sheet with the comparison that I had for the first reading.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
But it looks like that's a cost to the district. Hold on.
I just put down the math that it was 18,000. 811 more than we had requested earlier, with the possibility of nearly 10,000 of that being covered by the grant for the EL, the ILIT. So again, it looks like an awful lot. It's about $8,000 additional.
But it is a lot of, it's a lot more different text, a lot of different text.
Yeah, a lot of choice, and you know, I think that's always been one of the challenges for any English department. You know, reading a classic, but then you don't get to read other things, and so they're trying to balance it and really look at themes and skills rather than a list of great books. Now they can join the book club, and they can do Battle of the Books that way, and it'll be really good.
I mean, the choice is really what keeps the kids reading. It's that they have that flexibility to pick something that resonates with them.
Absolutely.
Echo that, Carrie. I mean, that's my thoughts exactly as I look at the long list of choice and just the diversity of authors and genres. And I think it's so important for engagement that kids see themselves in what they're doing, and representation matters. And I wish, selfishly, that back in the early 90s, I didn't have to read The Once and Future King, and
yes.
that I could have chosen from something more interesting. So well done to the team. Love seeing it.
You'll also notice that there's one choice for Excel and Honors, and there are two choices at the prep level. That also came out of the curriculum review process and working with our special educators and our reading specialists. They really wanted to find a wide range of reading ability, so that longer list, that second list that begins with March, was actually a graphic novel, all the way through Forgotten Fire. Those are even more high interest, and also a little wider range of Lexile levels, so a kid can find a wide range there. One of the things that they did as well is they spoke with the 8th grade teachers at one of their articulation meetings, and they were all sort of brainstorming title. You get English teachers together, that's what they do, so. Came up with lots of names.
Well, I saw the comment that Romeo and Juliet, some of the schools, the kids have already seen that, or been exposed to it in the middle schools, and so the switch to Othello was partly driven by that. Do I understand that?
Part of that, there was a time, and we've kind of gotten away from it, but there was a time when some of our middle schools would teach the same book we would teach freshman year to give them a leg up.
Oh, okay.
So then we would start it here as freshmen, and they're like, we already read this. We're like, okay. So this one, this is, I think, a much more healthy conversation of, hey, I just read When My Name Was Kyoko, why don't you guys try that? So that was one that came or The Girl of Kosovo, I'm sorry, was the one that was recommended by one of our 8th grade teachers. So it's been a great collaboration, as long as they don't steal it.
Yes, related to that, we have the summer reading.
Yes, and certainly in the vein of English teachers and lots of other teachers, they all got together and came up with summer reading lists that include our librarians and students, just sort of recommending things and trying to come up with a wide range of books. You see them all there. We have some romance, some take a chance, authentic, which are more nonfiction, and then exceptional reads with an exclamation point, and certainly there's definitely a wide range. My wife will tell you Lessons in Chemistry is something, if you haven't read it yet, you need to read immediately. She absolutely loved that one, which students would also like. And there's just a wide range. There's some that are at the beginning of a series. There's a graphic novel, Trash, by actually my favorite graphic novelist. A Stephen King book, because why not? Lots of excitement there. And a wide range of folks. We also had Nick Stone here to work with our students, so you'll notice there's a Nick Stone for summer and also in the freshman reading list. So I'd be happy to answer any questions as well. There's mystery, romance, a little bit of everything.
And just as a reminder, students are encouraged or asked to read one. How does this go
Correct.
in? One from this list, and certain classes have perhaps an additional requirement.
Yeah, the other books that are listed here are the ones that the AP classes are assigning, partly because AP tests often cover books and you can't read them all. So for the English 4 AP Lit, they want you to read one of the books that are listed here, and for the English 3 AP Lyons Comp, they're recommending anyone on the list, or maybe one of these 10 that they've added as well. The language in comp is a nonfiction based course, so you'll notice that most of those texts are nonfiction, so that's what they would recommend for that particular course. So, and the World Lit, the English 4 AP Lit, has really a wide range from all across the world, so different, very interesting mix of books as well.
As always, I'm always looking forward to the summer reading, because I really do. I love the differences of what are always offered, and I really appreciate there's a lot of care and a lot of thought that goes into these every year, and I really appreciate it. So please pass that on to Karen and Toby and
Absolutely.
everyone who has put this together.
It's how I plan my summer.
I know, right?
I always go
My
and look
summer
at,
reading.
yeah.
I do, I love it.
I wish I could read all of what you guys list, but I'm lucky if I get through one.
These will all be on the website with, all these are actually hot linked to reviews and things, and they're going to be putting together, along with the library, mini commercials, basically, for the books, so what they're all about, little mini book talks, so kids will get a sense of what they are. And some of the kids will go, oh my gosh, I didn't know so-and-so started a new series, and they'll already be reading. And other kids will be like, I think you'll like this one. Maybe, why don't you try this one, right? If you're into the NBA, there's the Giannis book, which would actually be a real good book to read, but see what you got. Lots of options. We do work with the Barnes & Noble at Oak Brook. They set up a table for us with all our books as well, so that's kind of exciting.
I don't think I knew that.
Yep. We used to do that with local bookstores, but they don't
Yeah.
exist anymore, so. But we'll let half-price books know what the list is. They'll probably do something as well.
All righty, I think we're good there. We can move on then with finance, where Mr. Stachek, the tentative amended fiscal year 2023 budget update.
Thank you, President Dillon. And so we have been looking at this now for the month of March, and now we're moving into the month of April. Again, that's the normal process of any time you adopt a budget or amend a budget. And so this is all normal course of action here. And the only change that I have made currently in the amended budget from what we've seen previously is that I have decreased $200,000 of expense in the transportation fund and increased roughly $200,000 of expense in the O&M fund, building and grounds expenses. And the reason for that is on the transportation side, earlier in the year we were able to consolidate some routes And so therefore, we are not paying as much on the contract because it's per route, per bus, essentially is how we pay. And so because we were able to consolidate some routes earlier this year, we're reducing some of that expense because we obviously are anticipating not spending it. Unfortunately, on the B&G side, we have had some additional expense related to repairs to the facilities, in particular HVAC and plumbing issues that we've had to have repaired. So that's why what's happening here is simply just a wash in terms of the expense. It's coming out of one fund, out of the transportation fund, and then being moved over to the building and grounds fund. Again, other than that, there have been no other changes made from anything that we talked about in March. I'm still waiting for the corporate personal property replacement tax distribution in the month of April. We've not had that yet. It usually comes, I want to say, about the second week or so. So I'm hoping that I can kind of take a look at that, update that information if needed. For the final budget, again, we've already upped that $1.25 million from our original budget, $7.75 million. Now we're at $9 million. And we'll take a look and see what this payment in April looks like. And again, as I mentioned in March, the payment in March was still much above historical levels, yet it was half of, roughly a little bit more than half of last year's payment. So that may signify that some of that is slowing down a bit. I don't know that for sure. We're going to have to wait and see what that looks like here as we go through April. But we'll make some determinations based upon that once I get that April payment. That being said, as we've talked about, initially we had on the original budget thought that we would use about $3 million worth of fund balance. And with those additional dollars and some of the reductions in expense that we've seen, we think that, I should say the additional dollars from the CPPRT money and the reduction of expense that we've seen, we are anticipating using about $1 million now of our surplus. And again, that may or may not be the case. We'll see how this goes with the CPPRT and any other issues that come up. I'm still looking at the medical insurance cost of the district. That one is trending a little bit higher than what we originally had anticipated, and so we'll keep an eye on that. But again, we'll have a final amended budget here in April, and then we would be asking the board to adopt that final amended budget during the regular April board meeting. That being said, I'd be happy to answer any questions on the information that we have here.
No, I like these kind of amendments. These are good ones.
Yeah.
We'll take this. And, no, my only thought is that if it does look good, that we just look at how for next summer we can get this, do something interesting with this extra money.
Sure, absolutely, and we can, potentially, couple that with, as we talked about, the bond sale coming up as well.
Yeah.
So absolutely, right.
Oh, good news. I like this kind.
Awesome. Thanks,
Okay,
Brian.
thank you.
That was great. All right, I think we've gone through the agenda for the evening. As I stated earlier, we are not conducting a closed session this evening, and as a result, this concludes our meeting for tonight. And I have a motion to adjourn. So moved?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thanks,
Wow.
everyone. Have a great week.
That was record timing.